right. Hey, welcome, folks. It's going to be your sit rep. It's 12/4/2025, and we're coming to you from the Monkey Lounge here in the great state of Texas. We're going to be talking about the big, beautiful gold dome. It's going to be magnificent. We're going to talk about what it actually entails. Does it even exist? How long will it take to make it all exist? Well, we're going to get into all of those little nitty gritty things. Look, before we get started, though, let me take you over here to our sponsor for this show. It's a satellite phone store. As always, they have some amazing deals going, and it is Christmas coming right around the corner. So if you want to get something really, really nice for your significant other, or your kids, whatever it may be, jump over there and check out what they've got going on. A lot of big deals, lots of big savings. You can see the savings are actually stacked up. This one's almost $1,000 off. So get in there and get yourself that Iridium 9575, the 9555. That's a phone that I have. Look, there's a reason why all of your senators and military and first responders are getting satellite phones, and it's because they need reliability. They need to be able to reach out and touch someone and not try to get cell service when everything is going sideways. So again, lots and lots of little packages and deals for us. In fact, even some battery backups with some solar panels to go with them. Great stuff to have in your quiver, as always. And then, of course, bulletproof backpacks. I mean, who doesn't need one of those, especially given the world we live in right now? But yeah, jump over there and check them out. That's sat123.com, sat123.com, or go give them a shout, 941-841-0844, and tell them Monkey sent you. Or you can just hover your phone right over this little QR code right there, take you straight to it. So, all right, let's get into what's going on in the skies over our head real fast. You can see we're sitting around 323 up on screen, and it's a pretty busy day. 115 text to trainers, so it's obviously beautiful flying weather right now. But look at the amount of 60s up. An insane number, 87. Folks, 25 is our baseline. So there is a lot of stuff happening. Now, some of this around Huntsville may actually be some training aircraft, but all this other stuff, yeah, probably not. And I don't drill down into those because sometimes that is actually ICE and crew at work. And so you just never can tell, and you don't want to dox them, right? So there is that aspect. And then let me show you what, from an electronic standpoint, we got Forte 10, that's out over the drink, a little ways away from here. But these E6s, this is TACMO, take charge, move out. This is going to be your Navy platform. The interesting piece with this is just the fact that these guys are talking to the nukes on your subs. And when you see them hovering around coastlines here off the coast of Florida, off the coast of Texas, and then up here, always kind of pay attention to them. 3 is a pretty good number. You don't see that many on a frequent basis. Now, let's jump over here to Forte 10, see where that little bad mamma jammer's located, and you can see it's kind of off the toe near Malta. And let me see what the altitude is, if I can get it to actually pull. It looks like it's on ground level. Yeah, it's just getting started. So we will come back to that one at another time. So let's do this. I'm going to take us over. We got a lot of different things to talk about, a lot of different elements. So we start off over in CONUS. And some of the things that I want to show you was, we'll talk Venezuela. We're going to talk about what's going on, Russia, Ukraine, as always. These are the things that just every week just inch along closer and closer to getting into that war footing. And so first and foremost, one element that I'm always, kind of hovering around, don't talk to directly, it's going to be the agency shell companies. And I'm not going to show you tail numbers because I want to be sensitive to that. And then when I say sensitive, the death threats like to come in anytime I show anything agency-wise. Imagine that, right? So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to show you where they're going, and you guys can come up with your own conclusion. But when you start talking about agencies, this right here, they're shell companies, okay? And so they go out and they do a lot of traveling on behalf of those agencies, and they're usually trying to work some behind-the-scene deals, etc. But you'll just notice I'm headed into Spain, right, out of the U.S. But look at this, folks. is like a week's worth of travel. So they're pretty active, pretty busy. Don't really see them traveling that much usually. That's usually about a month's worth of travel. So obviously they are very active and busy currently. So, all right, now take a look at the Intel community. This is ISR. So this is going to be primarily LaSalle Aviation doing all the legwork. You'll notice they are headed down towards the Caribbean. You'll notice too, they were out over Southern California and along our southern border. This, folks, is 3 days worth of flying. So the agencies, again, are very, very active in terms of doing the ISR stuff. Notice that one lands in Ramstein and heads down to kind of the middle of Italy. You'll see the normal stuff around the Black Sea, Constanta. And then you'll notice, too, they're looking at Crimea clearly. But then you'll notice as well that they kind of hover across the top end of Libya, because Libya is always a hotbed for the bad guys. And then, of course, North Korea, because they are absolutely getting very competitive with their weapon systems, right? So, okay. Now, I'm going to take us back to the mini. The main thing as we get into all of this story-wise is just showing you, one, how far out we actually are to developing the systems we need today. We are way far behind, way far behind. And that is something I think is a big takeaway. So this is going to be, you know, your big, beautiful dome, okay? The gold dome, it's really designed to kind of set itself up similar to the Iron Dome that Israel uses for their protection. You'll notice that the Pentagon just awarded $151 billion to this Missile Defense Agency's SHIELD program, okay? Now, the reason that is important is, notice here too, it says the Golden Dome Initiative advances as 1,014 firms cleared for future missile defense orders. Think about how big this program is going to be. If you've got over 1,000 firms that are pulling that together, it's quite a bit, okay? But here's the big thing. Does it actually exist today? Clearly not, if we're putting $151 billion into the program, right? So it's just kind of, right now, it's just let's just call it a branded program, okay? It's a metaphor. So its conceptual direction is absolutely in play, yes, 100%, right? Now, they're moving towards a layered, AI-driven, 360-degree national defense umbrella, but it's a patchwork of programs. Okay, it's taken a whole bunch, just as I showed you. There's 1,000 plus that are named. The MDA named 1,014 qualified offerers in the first phase of the deal, selected down from, so there's a down select from 2,463. But at that point, there were no funds actually obligated. Now, the real deployed systems all tied to this, you've got ground-based mid-course defense, right? Those things intercept the ICBMs in space, right? There's 44 interceptors, mainly positioned in Alaska and California. Then you have Aegis, right? We talked about that system. That is a Navy type system. It's going to be ship-based, but it also is to kill missiles in space primarily, but it can hit some low-hanging fruit too. And of course, you got THAAD, okay? That's a high-altitude terminal intercept system. Okay, the next thing, the Patriot. You always hear about Patriot missile defense, right? The PAC-3, right? That's lower tier intercept for cruise missiles and short-range rockets. Then, as we talked about the other SITREP, it's probably been a week or so, we talked about that, the floating golf ball, right? It looks like an oil platform. It's got the golf ball on top, the dome, so to speak. That's an X-band radar that's sea-based, primarily out of Hawaii, but it can move around, and it's about 8 knots, I think, is the top speed on that. And then, of course, you have other concepts out there that are kind of the over-the-horizon radar. You hear me talking about that quite a bit when we talk about the mil-intel balloons over our heads, that more than likely they have that over-the-horizon type of capability. And, you know, the last thing in our quiver is going to be the NORAD stuff, Northcom, right? Integrated air defense. And that ties into all kinds of different things like the C2s, the AWACS, the radar type of stuff on ground-based platforms. And then, of course, jets, right? The stuff that is flying around actually real-time operating. But the parts that are in development or are prototyped of this great, big, beautiful dome, right? The glide phase interceptor, the GPI, right? Specifically to kill hypersonics, right? The testing starts late decade. So we're talking 5 to 10 years out. Okay. Space-based tracking layer, right? That's something DARPA is going to pull together. It's going to have SDA satellites that follow hypersonics end to end. Then there's the AI-driven C2 fusion, right? That the kill web, as they would call it. That's fuse radar, satellite, IR, AWACS, cyber, and shooters all into one nice little clean package. Now, the AI piece may actually come along faster than a lot of the other things because AI is advancing so rapidly that it could almost write its own program. Then you get the direct energy lasers, right? That maybe we've seen those in play. They come out of C-130 ships, naval assets, fixed sites, probably satellites if I was a betting man, right? But they say those are still not operational yet. DEWs, I think, are probably operational. High altitude drone interceptors, right? That's the concept phase. The persistent platforms carrying interceptors or lasers, okay? But again, this is all future leaning stuff. So some of it is just pure fantasy sci-fi, okay? So might exist 15 to 25 years if funding is consistent, is really the kind of way this is really going. Not 5 to 10. The realistic aspect is probably 15 to 25. So really what it's saying is a seamless missile-proof dome over the U.S. is not physically possible with the current technology. The instant hypersonic kill chain, we're behind Russia and China in some areas, but they're extremely hard to track and kill because they move so fast. In fact, to get to hypersonics, you have to be 15 times the speed of sound. And then, of course, space lasers, a bit of science fiction, not really operational to scale, okay? Autonomous AI, only defense decisions. Humans are still staying in the loop for the foreseeable future. Why? Because, when you look at AI drones, they start thinking for themselves and they start making command decisions that are not necessarily the direction we tell them to go. So think Terminator, right? So is it realistic? Yeah, maybe in the next 2 decades, I think. But it is at least at a minimum 10 plus years from being any type of mature. And that, of course, is barring wartime acceleration. Now, you may remember terms like Star Wars. That was also kind of, concept. It never really, truly took shape. All right. So you can see that as we throw out $151 billion and select or down select 1,000 plus firms to do all of this, we are still way far away from where we really actually need it, which was yesterday. Okay, so let's move on over to this side because this, as you saw, we just spent $151 billion on one single Gold Dome weapon system or defense system for the United States. But global arms sales are soaring to record highs. Who do you think is making all the money? Yeah, it's the defense contractors, hand over fist. And so look at this. It says global arms sales have surged to an unprecedented level with the world's 100 largest weapons and military service companies generating $679 billion in 2024 alone. That number is skyrocketing because the big, beautiful bill just came out. And I just think Pete Hegseth said they're getting ready to go big on buys. So get ready because this will probably eclipse what we just spent. All right. At a record high. Okay. So here's a little bit of maybe good news, but there's a little hidden nugget in here that you have to pay close attention to, because the Treasury Secretary basically says we're cutting off benefits to illegals. Okay? They belong to Americans. It's this kind of a jockeying for position, because keep in mind that we just came out of a super long government shutdown that highlighted the fact that illegals are getting paid quite a bit of money out of our system that should be going to Americans. Don't dispute that. The key word here is illegals, because when you start to hear about the 200,000 Afghanis that are in our country, or all the Somalians that are sitting up in Minnesota, the reality is they are not illegal, folks. They are all here under SIVs. You've got people from all around the world that come into our country that are here legally because our government brought them here, right? Now, you let that sink in. The very ones that are supposed to be protecting us, national security, has let the fox in the hen house. So it says here, illegal aliens that use our financial institutions to move their illicitly obtained funds is exploitation. This is just a talking point. Now, I may also point out the fact that what do you see in this picture? I see a girl here, maybe, I can't tell if that is. Everybody else, fighting age males. Okay. So the big thing that I just was blown away with was this statement that Trump makes right here, because this right here, if you don't stand up and pay attention to the fact that I just showed you what's going on with the intifada efforts across America and around the rest of the world, Trump has said that the U.S. now hosts a foreign population of 53 million people, citing census data, and charged that many recent arrivals depend on taxpayer-supported welfare programs while coming from failed nations or from prisons, mental institutions, gangs, and drug cartels. 53 million people, folks, in our country, foreigners. It's too little, too late. Right? All you're trying to do now is just stop the bleed. Okay, you're just putting pressure on the wound. Because there's no way you're going to get all of those people out, especially if the government is working against you. They're working against themselves, actually, because they're trying to get illegals out. At the same time, they're bringing them in droves. In fact, 200,000 is probably, a third of what they've gotten out. And that's just the Afghanis. That's just since the Afghan cabal thing went sideways. Okay. So start crunching those numbers, 53 million. That's because you had a wide slap open border for decades, and they just been coming across willy-nilly. All right. Trump says National Guard will be sent to New Orleans. Now, do you see the trend happening here? Deployed, right? We're getting folks, we got them in D.C., Chicago, Oregon, right? Talking about San Francisco, New Orleans, right? It just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, the goal for these guys is to basically round up and deport. They're saying they want to get rid of so they're saying 1,000 troops are going to put in to fight crime. But then I saw a number here that the operation aims to arrest 5,000 people over the coming weeks. Now, that is basically swamp sweep in Louisiana. That is Border Patrol led. But note the change here, because when you went to D.C., they weren't there arresting illegals. Okay, when they went to Chicago, they were just taking down bad guys. But there's a command presence, right? All of a sudden, now you throw 1,000 guard in there to help secure the work that the Border Patrol is going to be doing. 5,000, and those numbers just keep getting bigger and bigger. 1,000 here, 2,000 there. It's just goes to show you the scope, and they're not even scratching the surface. Okay. Pentagon chief says the U.S. has only just begun striking alleged drug boats don't know why they use the word alleged. I mean, you can see them chucking the stuff over the side. They're not throwing packs of baby diapers over the side of the boats, folks. It's cocaine, okay? So it methamphetamine and all the other bad stuff, right? But yeah, this is just getting warmed up. We got eyes on the situation because I think it is absolutely on the verge of escalating. But check us out. Trump gave Maduro an exit ultimatum. Now, what he said is he's going to offer safe passage, or he was. It's actually lapsed at this point. After which the U.S. announced a no-fly zone over Venezuela. So what you do is you tell everybody don't fly in the area. So when you see that airplane leave, you know who's on it, right? So nonetheless, this guy is pretty much in charge of the Sun Cartel, right? He's heavily tied to him, super corrupt. And his military is also in the works with him. So when Maduro made the comment to Trump that, hey, listen, I will step down as El Presidente, but I'm going to still control my military. Well, that's basically ensuring that his drug money funds and human trafficking funds still come in. Okay. So, of course, we turned that down, but I will tell you, this is definitely starting to ratchet up. I don't see us actually going in as some type of a land invasion, but I could see a strike to take out somebody if you knew exactly where they were. Okay. Now, this one, it just goes to show you how the scope is starting to creep. Colombia issues a new statement on Trump's military threat. Basically, Trump doubled down. You know, he's talking about going after them. He's talked about tariffs. He said he's going to tariff all the cocaine leaving the country. Just kidding. That was a joke. But nonetheless, Colombia is basically doubling down against Trump. So now you're going to start to see maybe some coordinated efforts between Colombia and Venezuela, since they are kind of squeezed together there. But remember, too, you've got countries like Nicaragua and Mexico and other places in Central America that are also pushing back against Trump when he says he's going to come in and start taking down all of these cartels. So just pay attention to it, because this could actually make things ratchet up a bit. One good piece of news is that I don't see Russia and China coming into the Caribbean yet. The minute they start coming in, then that's when you probably see things start to change from how the U.S. handles the situation. Okay, let's change over to Europe, because this piece is going to get you, you're going to be pretty upsetty spaghetti over this one, okay? So remember, we have pumped so much money into Ukraine. Now look at what just pops out. Now, of course, this is heavily biased, so take it with a pinch of salt, because it is from the Russian Times, but, you know, doesn't mean it's not accurate. Remember, Ukraine is the number one corrupt country on the planet. That's why they don't allow them into NATO, because their corruption is so bad that they can't let them be part of NATO. So you let that sink in. So what do we do instead? We give them all the weapons and money that they want. We just pump it all into their country. So what happens? Well, you take all that same stuff, you give it to a corrupt country. What is that? They say this is the crazy number. Ukrainian officials could have bagged over $100 billion in Western aid. That's coming from the former PM. Now, remember too, this figure represents nearly a third of all foreign assistance given to the country, coming from Nikolai Azarov. That's him claiming this. So it's absolutely crazy. It says the U.S. and the EU have pumped a total of $360 billion into Ukraine. Corruption in Ukraine amounts to between 15 to 30% worth of foreign aid being stolen. All right, the figure is closer to probably 30% in Ukraine, he added. The former prime minister estimated that between $54 billion and $108 billion could have been lost to corruption. So again, it's an estimate, but remember too, this guy's coming under scrutiny right now. Doesn't look good, right? That's our tax dollars, folks. When you send it over there, you start seeing our weapons showing up in different areas of Africa, and because they're taking it and selling it. Yeah, it's not good. No bueno. All right. Speaking of Ukraine, explosions rock part of Russia's strategic Druzhba pipeline, all caught on camera. And this is the pipeline that actually pumps. This is the number here. Okay. The oil pipeline, one of Europe's most important energy arteries, which moves roughly 1.2 to 1.5 million barrels a day from Russia through Belarus and Ukraine into Central Europe. So if that gets cut off, Central Europe pays the price. So who did it? I don't know. But again, we keep seeing the trend of this stuff happening. I'm going to hit play here 1 second, and you'll see the explosion happen. So somebody was videoing it, so they certainly know who did it, because that sure was awfully close and looked to be deliberately aimed at the site that was about to be blown up. So just let that sink in. But here, look, I've talked about this in the past. It says Ukraine's attacks on Russian refineries at a record in November. Drones hit the oil processing plants at least 14 times last month. Look at how this is ratcheting up. Boom, offline. They keep hitting them. They repair them, and then they just come back in. And now you can see record levels. While they're trying to talk peace, tell you this is the number one way that Russia is going to go hot on Ukraine in a big, big way, and maybe even the West, because this is Russia's number one income resource, export of oil and gas. So when you see this happening and it continues to ratchet up, all you're doing is taking peace off the table in a big way. All right. So new map shows Russia is seeking a military footprint in contested Sudan. Now, this is big because it is proximity to all of this right across here. So if they control this port, okay, you start talking about failed states, right? Mali, we just had one out here as well. I forget the name of that off the top of my head. Niger, Chad, Nigeria, Sudan, Ethiopia. All of these are failed states, but they are rich in rare earth minerals, gold, diamonds. This is like if they had a bread belt, that would be it. But as in bread, moolah, okay? Lots and lots of money. So if you set up a port in Sudan, that helps you get this stuff across and export out of the country and off to the races. Because you can then go through Suez, you can come down past here, out to get that stuff out of the country or out of the continent. Okay. But Russia is slowly starting and China to control these areas across here. Okay, man, one last little story for you, because it's important to understand that China is still very much on the move. In fact, if you look at the latest, this is the PLA Navy. It's a 48th Escort Task Group is now in the port of Sultan in Oman. That was on just right around Thanksgiving, just before Thanksgiving. But it goes to show you that both Russia and China are doing great expansions. The fact that they are starting to show up over here, look, they want to get in chummy with the Middle East and all the Middle East oil and money, etc. And so this is going to be a major point of contention. The kings of the East, when you get to Ezekiel 38 and you start talking about Turkey and Iran and Russia up here, right? All coming down into Israel for the spoils. Don't think for a minute that these kings of the East aren't going to be part of the equation, because the alliance between all of them now is getting stronger and stronger by the day. So, all right, head on a swivel, folks. This is a time to be alive. And, it's faith over fear. Don't let any of it worry you and bother you. As the infamous, I would call her infamous. She is the famous Jan Markell always says, right? I don't tell you this to scare you. I tell you to prepare you. And she's absolutely right. I do the same thing. This gives you knowledge. Knowledge is power. It allows you to really see what is moving the big pieces in the world so that you can prepare for it, right? And it's very important to do so. So that's going to do it. You guys keep that powder dry and stay frosty. We'll see you in the next sit rep. God bless. Monkey out.